Hello, today we will be presenting on maximizing media content revenue by predicting what people want to read. And Robin is going to start us off.
As society progresses digitally with each generation, it is imperative for online news sources to understand the behaviors of its consumers in the market in which it is in. When companies start to grasp a better understanding of the factors that drive consumers to interact with a post, they can improve their marketing tactics. Through this, they can increase their articles' popularities and grow their profit. Viewings, likes, reposts, and other forms of content sharing essentially lead to article popularity and business revenue. And now Tristan will talk about the literature review on the articles we researched relating to our topic.
We can look back at previous literature regarding online news popularity to understand what predictive modeling approaches have been used in the past, as well as how we can differentiate ourselves to come up with new outcomes. We've particularly not included a popularity threshold to see if we can predict the nominal amount of shares that can be achieved based on our features, as well as focusing on pre-publication features to increase the generalizability of our business impact. Lastly, we've included both linear regression modeling and KNN modeling in comparison to the random forest predictive modeling approach to see its efficiency when coming up with our response variable of shares. Now we can dive into the methodology behind our study.
For the methodology, we started with cleaning our dataset. This required checking for missing or duplicated variables along with checking for outliers and looking for normality among our data. We then moved on to the exploratory data analysis where we ran correlation tests to determine what variables would be significant in our models. Next, we standardized our data and split it into a training and test set to accurately run our three models, random forest, KNN, and linear regression. We then compared the models and determined random forest is the best because it yields the lowest error results. Lastly, we ran the test to determine which variables would have the most sway on the number of shares, aka views the articles received. I'm now going to pass it off to Drake to talk about statistical results.
So for our statistical results, as you can see, we ran the random forest and the linear regression, and we also ran a KNN. As you'll see, the KNN isn't included in our graph because the values were far too large. It would have masked the results from the ones that were actually applicable and reasonable. We think that the KNN didn't really represent the data and had way higher error than we were expecting because it doesn't do so well with larger data sets like ours, and that kind of came through the amount of errors that we received. As you can see, the MAE is a lot less than the MSE, again, just because of the higher dimensionality and size of our data set. But these are what we got for our results. Moving on to expected business impact.
As our world becomes more and more digitized, it is imperative for online news platforms to remain competitive by focusing on factors which have the greatest impact on the overall shares of an article. As an article is shared more and more times, it will result in greater revenue for the company. If we assume that each share results in one view and then a company yields roughly 0.0001 cents per view, it becomes crucial for the company to gain an understanding of the factors that drive shares. If a company were to focus on the top 4 share-driving factors, they should steer their interests and resources on the amount of times an article is referenced, the amount of days between publications, world-centric articles, entertainment-centric articles, and articles shared on the weekend. Focusing on these factors will have great importance and effect on the overall shares of an article, and in turn create more exposure and revenue for the company. Now I will hand it off to Robin to conclude our presentation.
After analyzing the online news popularity data, certain relationships between variables and the response variable, number of shares, became apparent. After our analysis of the variables, the most significant features for the models were chosen and those correlated with one another were dropped. After developing models with k-nearest neighbors regression, linear regression, and random forest regressor, the results showed that random forest regressor yielded the lowest error results, making this the best model for determining the driving factors for an online news platform article shares. These shares help companies identify which articles people enjoy reading the most. The most important variables in identifying an online article's shares are the number of times an article is referenced, the number of days between publications, world-centric articles, entertainment-centric articles, and articles shared on the weekends.